Please, sir, just the barn. Anywhere out of the wind. It's freezing cold. Japheth Tucker stared at the trembling woman holding 3 half-frozen girls clinging to her skirts. He'd buried his own family in this frozen ground, sworn never to care again. But those children, blue-lipped, trembling, the woman's eyes, desperate, hunted, told him death was chasing her, and it was closer than she knew.
Hello, compliments of the season. If you love heartwarming stories about life in times past, then you'd enjoy these stories. Comment where you're watching from, like and share these videos with loved ones as you enjoy them. Do not forget to subscribe to our channel too. My team and I have something free and beautiful for you once we hit the 1,000 subscriber mark. It will be shared in the community. You know, we go to great lengths to make these stories, and your support means a lot to us. Therefore, we plan to give back to you once we are able to. So be a part of what we are building.
The ice came down like shattered glass, turning the Ouachita foothills into a frozen hell. Each gust of wind sent branches cracking like rifle shots, and the temperature had dropped so low that breath froze before it left your lips. December 1887 was shaping up to be the coldest winter Arkansas had seen in a generation. Japheth Tucker stood alone in his cabin, a half-empty bottle of whiskey in one hand, staring into the dying fire. He was 38 years old and felt twice that. His beard had gone wild, streaked with gray he hadn't earned through age but through grief. The cabin around him was dark, cold in all the ways that mattered. He hadn't spoken to another soul in 6 days. Hadn't wanted to. 5 years ago, this place had been full of life. Emma's laughter, little Daniel's footsteps racing across the floorboards. Now, it was just him and the ghosts, and most nights the ghosts were better company than the silence. He raised the bottle to his lips when the pounding started. At first, he thought it was the storm branches against the door. But then it came again, weak, desperate, human. Japheth set down the bottle and grabbed the shotgun from beside the door. Nobody came this far up the mountain after dark unless they were lost or running. Either way, it meant trouble. He yanked open the door, lamp raised high. The wind hit him first, bitter and cutting. Then he saw her. A woman stood on his porch, thin as a rail, shaking so hard her teeth clattered. Behind her, clinging to her tattered skirt, were 3 little girls. The oldest couldn't have been more than 8. The youngest looked barely old enough to walk. All of them had that hollow-eyed look of people who'd seen the edge of death and knew how close they were standing. The woman's lips were cracked and bleeding. When she spoke, her voice was barely a whisper. "Please, sir," she said, "can we sleep in a barn? It's freezing. Use till morning. We won't be any trouble." Japheth stared at her, at the children, at the way ice had formed in the youngest girl's hair. He should have said no, should have pointed them toward Waldron, told them the church took in strays. But those children, blue-lipped, trembling, they looked like death's next harvest. "Barns got holes," he heard himself say. "You'll freeze out there." He stepped aside. Get inside. Morning came gray and cold, but inside the cabin, warmth had returned. Japheth woke on the floor by the hearth, his back aching, shotgun still within reach. He'd given the woman and her girls his bed, and sometime in the night, he'd heard the youngest one crying softly until her mother's voice soothed her back to sleep. He stood slowly, joints protesting, and looked toward the bedroom. The door was cracked open. Through it, he could see the woman already awake, braiding the oldest girl's hair with gentle, practiced movements. Japheth moved to the stove and started a fire. He hadn't cooked a real meal in longer than he cared to admit, but muscle memory took over. Eggs from the hen house, bacon from the cold cellar, biscuits from the flour barrel. The smell filled the cabin like something remembered from another life. The woman emerged first, the 3 girls trailing behind her like ducklings. In the daylight, he could see her more clearly. Late 20s, maybe 30. Pretty once, before whatever had happened to her. Her dress was worn thin, patched in a dozen places. Her hands were rough, calloused, the hands of someone who knew work. "I'm Rachel," she said quietly. "Rachel Morrison. These are my daughters, Mary Ruth and Naomi. Japheth nodded. Japheth Tucker. He set plates on the table. The girls stared at the food like they weren't sure it was real. Rachel's eyes glistened. Eat, he said. They did. Silently at first, then with increasing hunger. Mary, the oldest, ate slowly, watching her sisters, making sure they had enough before taking more herself. That told Japheth something about how they'd been living. After breakfast, Rachel stood and began clearing dishes without being asked. We'll work for our keep, she said. I can cook, men clean. The girls can help with chores. We won't be a burden. Didn't say you were. She paused, her sleeves sliding back as she reached for a plate. Japheth saw them then. Bruises, dark purple, yellowed at the edges. Old ones beneath new ones. And something else, circular marks on her wrists like burns. Rachel caught him looking and quickly pulled her sleeve down. Stay till the weather breaks, Japheth said, looking away. Then you do what you need to. She nodded, but he saw the fear flicker across her face. Whatever she was running from, it wasn't the cold. 3 days passed. The storm broke, but Rachel didn't leave. She moved through the cabin like she was trying to earn her existence, scrubbing floors that hadn't been touched in years, opening curtains Japheth had kept closed since Emma died. The girls brought something back too. Laughter, the sound of small feet running. Life. Japheth found himself talking again, showing Mary how to scatter feed for the chickens, teaching Ruth the names of the horses. Even little Naomi had stopped flinching every time he moved too quickly. But Rachel, she still watched the road. On the 4th night, Japheth woke to the sound of crying. Not the girls this time. He found Rachel at the window, arms wrapped around herself, staring out into the darkness like she could see something coming that he couldn't. He'll find us, she whispered. He always does. Japheth pulled a chair beside her and sat. Who? For a long moment, she said nothing. Then the dam broke. My husband, Clayton Morrison. The name came out like poison. He owns half of Little Rock. Timber mills, land, politicians. Everyone answers to him. She told him everything. Married at 17 to a charming man who became a monster. Years of beatings, locked rooms, threats whispered in the dark. How he'd broken her ribs and told a doctor she'd fallen down the stairs. How he'd burned her wrist with a fireplace poker and made her tell the neighbors it was an accident. After Naomi was born, I tried to leave. Her voice cracked. He found me in 2 days. Beat me so bad I couldn't walk for a week. Then he told me if I ever tried again, he'd have me committed to the asylum and keep the girls. She pulled back her sleeve fully now, showing Japheth the scars. Not just bruises. Burns. Breaks that had healed wrong. I waited 3 years. Planned. Saved. The night he left for Memphis on business, we ran. Japheth's hands curled into fists. He thought of Emma, of Daniel, of all the times he'd been helpless to save the people he loved. You're not going back, he said, voice hard as iron. I don't care who he is or what he owns. You're not going back. Rachel looked at him, tears streaming down her face, like she'd been waiting her whole life for someone to say those words. What happens when Clayton discovers where they are? Subscribe to find out. The next morning, Japheth taught Rachel to shoot. They set up bottles on the fence line behind the barn. Her hands shook at first, the rifle heavy and unfamiliar in her grip. But she learned fast, and by the 3rd round, she was hitting targets. Again, Japheth said, don't think. Just breathe and squeeze. The bottle shattered. Rachel lowered the rifle, something fierce and new burning in her eyes. Good, Japheth said. Now you do it in the dark, in the rain, when you're scared out of your mind. Mary watched from the porch, solemn beyond her years. Can I learn too? Japheth hesitated, then nodded. You can learn to reload. That's just as important. Over the next week, they fortified. Japheth mapped sight lines around the property, showed Rachel where to position herself if someone came from the road. They practiced drills. At his signal, the girls would run to the root cellar and hide. Ruth could do it in under a minute now, carrying Naomi the whole way. Dora Finch arrived on the 8th day, a weathered widow from the neighboring property. She took one look at Rachel and the girls and seemed to understand everything without asking. You'll need another pair of eyes, Dora said, dismounting. And I shoot better than most men half my age. She brought Sheriff Boone Tackett with her. He was younger than Japheth expected, maybe 40, with the kind of face that had seen too much and believed too little. "Mrs. Morrison," Tackett said, tipping his hat. "Miss Finch tells me you might be expecting trouble." Rachel's jaw tightened. "My husband, Clayton Morrison from Little Rock." Tackett's expression darkened. "I know the name. He's got judges in his pocket, half the state legislature on his payroll." He paused. "If he comes for you, it won't be legal. He'll buy a badge or bring hired guns. Then we'll be ready," Japheth said. Tackett studied him. "You understand what you're getting into? Morrison doesn't lose. Ever. He hasn't met me yet." That evening, after the sheriff left and Dora rode home promising to watch the North Road, Rachel found Japheth splitting wood behind the barn. "Why are you doing this?" she asked. "You don't owe us anything." Japheth set down the axe. "Maybe I'm tired of letting people I care about face the devil alone." Marshall Vance Holbrook rode in on a Tuesday morning, his horse expensive, his boots polished to a mirror shine. Everything about him screamed authority, from the badge pinned to his vest to the Colt revolver at his hip. He dismounted slowly, deliberately, like a man who'd never been told no in his life. Japheth met him at the porch, shotgun cradled in his arms. Rachel stood behind him, the girls hidden inside. "Japheth Tucker." Holbrook's voice was smooth, practiced. "I'm Marshall Vance Holbrook, operating under jurisdiction of the federal court in Little Rock." He pulled folded papers from his coat. "I'm here for Rachel Morrison and her 3 minor children. She's wanted for kidnapping, child endangerment, and theft of property valued over $500. Rachel's breath caught. Japheth didn't move. "Let me see those papers." Holbrook handed them over, smirking. They were real, official stamps and signatures, signed by Judge Cornelius Wade. Every word carefully crafted to make Rachel look like a criminal. "This is a lawful order, Tucker," Holbrook said. "You interfere, you'll hang for obstruction." A horse approached from the road. Dora Finch, arriving at exactly the right moment. She dismounted and walked straight up to Holbrook, studying his face. "Vance Holbrook," she said slowly, "didn't you work that land grab scandal up in Fort Smith? The one where homesteaders got burned out after refusing to sell?" Holbrook's jaw tightened. "I was cleared of any wrongdoing. Cleared by the same judge who signed those papers, I'd wager." Dora turned to Japheth. "He's on Morrison's payroll. Has been for years." Japheth stepped forward, raising the shotgun just slightly. "You take one step toward that door, Marshall, and this ranch becomes your grave." Holbrook's hand moved toward his revolver, then stopped. He was outnumbered, and he knew it. His smile returned, cold and calculated. "You're making a mistake, Tucker. A fatal one." He mounted his horse, looking down at them. "Morrison's coming himself, with enough men to burn this place to ash and everyone in it." He wheeled his horse around. "You got maybe a week. Use it to make peace with your God." As he rode off, Rachel grabbed Japheth's arm. "We should run. Now. Tonight." Japheth shook his head. "We run now, we'll be running forever. Then we fight. Then we fight." The fire came at 2 in the morning. Japheth woke to the smell of smoke and the sound of crackling wood. He bolted upright, grabbed his rifle, and ran outside. The smokehouse was engulfed in flames, orange light dancing against the night sky like the devil's own lantern. "Rachel!" he shouted, running toward the blaze. She burst from the cabin, barefoot, eyes wild. "The provisions, everything we stored for winter." She started toward the fire. Japheth caught her around the waist, pulling her back as the roof collapsed inward with a roar of sparks and heat. "Let it burn," he said, holding her tight. "It's already gone." The girls appeared on the porch, Naomi crying, Mary holding her sisters close. Japheth and Rachel stood in the yard, watching months of work turn to ash. When the flames finally died down to embers, Japheth walked the perimeter. That's when he found it, a piece of red cloth tied to the fence post, fluttering in the breeze. Clean, deliberate, a calling card. "They were here," Rachel whispered, voice shaking. Watching us sleep, Dora arrived at dawn, her face grim. "They're testing you, seeing if you'll break. Next time it'll be the house." Sheriff Tackett rode in an hour later with news that made Japheth's blood run cold. Holbrook filed formal complaints with the territorial court. My hands are tied legally. He paused, and Morrison's hired Tobias Gant. Rachel went pale. Ooh, Confederate raider, Japheth said quietly. Killed more men after the war than during it. He's a gun for hire now. Tackett nodded. This is going to get bloody, real bloody. That afternoon, Japheth made the hardest decision. He sent the girls to Dora's farm, far enough away to be safe. Ruth cried. Mary stayed silent, but her eyes said everything. Naomi clung to Rachel's neck until Dora gently pried her away. I'll keep them safe, Dora promised. You just stay alive. After they left, the ranch felt hollow. Rachel stood at the window, watching the road. Japheth came up behind her, pressed something into her hand. His mother's locket, silver and worn. For luck, he said. And so you know I'm in this to the end. Rachel turned, looked up at him, and kissed him. Brief, desperate, real. Then they prepared for war. Will Rachel and Japheth survive what's coming? Don't miss the climax. Subscribe now. Clayton Morrison arrived at dawn with 8 armed men. He rode at the front on a black stallion, dressed like he was attending a business meeting in Little Rock. Tailored coat, polished boots, a gold watch chain glinting in the early light. Handsome in the way snakes are beautiful right before they strike. Behind him rode Tobias Gant, a lean man with dead eyes and a reputation that preceded him like smoke. The other 6 were hired guns, rough men with no loyalty beyond whoever paid the most. They stopped 50 yards from the house, spreading out in a loose semicircle. Clayton removed his hat, smiled like he was greeting old friends. Rachel, darling, he called out, voice carrying across the frozen ground. Let's end this foolishness. Come home. We're my daughters. We'll forget this ever happened. The cabin door opened. Rachel stepped onto the porch, rifle in hand, Japheth beside her. I'd rather die, she said, voice steady. Clayton's smile vanished. The mask slipped, revealing the monster beneath. Cold rage barely contained. You will die, he said quietly. And Tucker, and anyone else who helped you steal my property. She's not property, Japheth said. And she's not leaving. Clayton leaned forward in his saddle. I'm offering you mercy, Tucker. One chance. Send her out now, and you live. Keep her, and I burn this ranch to the ground with everyone inside. Go to hell. Clayton straightened, nodding slowly. So be it. He raised his hand, and his men began moving, circling the property like wolves surrounding wounded prey. You have 1 hour, Clayton announced. 1 hour to decide if you want to die for a woman who isn't even yours. Inside, Japheth and Rachel moved quickly, barricading doors, positioning ammunition at every window. They drilled for this, but knowing it was coming and living it were different things entirely. Then a voice called from the barn. Hope you didn't think I'd missed the party. Dora Finch emerged from the loft, her late husband's rifle in her arms. Been here since midnight. Figured you'd need an extra gun. Hoofbeats approached from the east. Sheriff Tackett and 2 deputies rode hard into the yard. Couldn't let you fight alone, Tackett said, dismounting. The hour ticked down. Silence fell, thick and suffocating. Then the first shot cracked across the morning, and hell came to the Tucker Ranch. Gunfire erupted from the tree lean like thunder. Bullets punched through wooden siding, shattered windows, kicked up dirt in angry sprays. Japheth fired from the front window, dropping a man advancing across the open ground. The raider fell, clutching his chest, and didn't move again. Creek bed, Tackett shouted. 2 coming from the creek. One of the deputies swung his rifle toward the sound, fired twice. A scream cut through the chaos. Dora fired from the barn loft, methodical and deadly. Another man went down, then another. She reloaded with practiced efficiency, like she was shelling peas instead of ending lives. Tobias Gant made his move, sprinting toward the house with 3 men behind him. They laid down, covering fire, bullets chewing through the porch railing. Japheth met them at the door. The first man threw caught a rifle, but to the face. The second, Japheth shot at point-blank range. Then Gant was on him, knife flashing. They crashed into the table, fists and elbows and desperate violence. The blade caught Japheth's side, hot pain blooming. He grabbed Gant's wrist, slammed it against the doorframe until the knife clattered free. Then he drove his own blade upward between the ribs, feeling it sink deep. Gant's eyes went wide. He coughed blood and collapsed. Japheth stumbled back, hand pressed to his bleeding side. Rachel was at the rear window, face streaked with powder smoke and tears. She'd already fired twice, maybe 3 times. A body lay, crumpled, near the back door, where someone had tried to break through. Then came a scream from outside. Clayton's voice, raw and furious. "Rachel! Rachel!" He appeared at the front of the house, revolver raised, firing wildly. One bullet shattered the lamp. Another punched through the wall inches from Japheth's head. Rachel stepped into the doorway, rifle raised. Clayton saw her and stopped. For a moment, they just stared at each other. Years of pain and fear and violence contained in that single look. "You don't know me anymore," Rachel said. She pulled the trigger. Clayton Morrison fell backward, blood spreading across his expensive coat like spilled wine. He twitched once, tried to speak, then went still. Silence crashed down. Then hoofbeats. Marshal Holbrook appeared, gun drawn. "Rachel Morrison, you're under arrest for—" "No, she's not." Sheriff Tackett stepped forward, his own weapon trained on Holbrook. "You're done." The smoke cleared slowly, revealing the cost. One of Tackett's deputies dead, shot through the throat in the first volley. 4 of Clayton's men scattered across the property like broken toys. Tobias Gant cooling on Japheth's floor. And Clayton Morrison himself, the great timber baron of Little Rock, lying in the dirt with a hole in his chest put there by the woman he'd tried to own. Japheth sat on the porch steps, Rachel pressing cloth against the knife wound in his side. The bleeding had slowed, but the pain was sharp and insistent. Marshal Holbrook sat in the dirt, hands bound, while Sheriff Tackett stood over him with evidence pulled from the marshal's own saddlebag. Letters, payment receipts, proof of conspiracy stretching back years. "You're finished, Holbrook," Tackett said. "Federal court will hear all of it." Holbrook spat in the dirt, then looked at Rachel with pure hatred. "This isn't over. Morrison has family. They'll come. Let them," Rachel said quietly. Holbrook's trial never happened. He broke free during transport, stole a horse, and vanished into the wilderness. Some said he made it to Mexico. Others claimed he froze to death in the mountains. Either way, he never came back. Spring arrived like mercy. The ice melted, revealing land that had survived another winter. Japheth and Rachel rebuilt the smokehouse together, planting gardens where blood had soaked into the soil. The girls returned from Dora's farm, and laughter filled the cabin again. One evening, as the sun set over the Washita Hills, Japheth found Rachel at Emma's grave. She placed wildflowers there, a quiet gesture of respect. "I'm not trying to replace her," Rachel said. "You're not," Japheth replied. "You're helping me live again." He took her hand. "I'm not a whole man, Rachel. Got ghosts. Got scars that won't heal right. But what's left of me is yours if you'll have it." She turned, tears in her eyes. "I'm not looking for perfect, Japheth. Just real." They married in April, Dora officiating, the girls in dresses sewn from fabric Japheth had bought in town. Ruth called them Papa without hesitation now. Mary helped with the ranch like she'd been born to it. Even little Naomi had stopped flinching at sudden movements. One night, as they sat on the porch watching fireflies dance, Rachel whispered, "Thank you for answering the door." Japheth squeezed her hand. "Thank you for knocking." Inside, the cabin glowed with lamplight. Smoke rose from the chimney. The ranch was alive again. Home, hard-won, worth every battle. From desperate strangers to fierce defenders to family. Their story proves love is worth fighting for. Subscribe to never miss stories like this.
If you enjoyed this story, we appreciate you a whole lot and look forward to connecting with you as we build a community on this channel. Every day, we will put out more stories, so we need your support. Help us by liking, sharing, and subscribing to our channel if you haven't already. You won't miss any new exciting videos. Check out the next video. You'll love it.